Welcome to another This Week in Coworking Discussion.
So, what's one thing the co-working world can or should learn from the European market?
Yes, I think I've actually been learning a whole lot about managed suites. I've always been a big fan of what, for instance, is happening in France and in the UK. Really, just the depth of flex in the market means that I see a lot of really great examples there, which I think we so often see the US centric examples, but there's a lot more really considered hospitality and management models that I've seen in Europe. And I really encourage everyone to take a look.
And on the flip side, what do you think that there's around the world, either in APAC where you're from
Yeah.
or the States, that Europe could learn from?
Yes, look, Australia, one of the things certainly is the depth to which landlords have invested in their spaces and creating branded spaces. Either they're branded buildings or they're branded flex operations. Australian landlords have actually been doing this for a very long time, and indeed a lot longer than what I see in other markets.
Yeah. What do you think was the impetus for that? Why were they ahead of the curve?
That's a good question. Look, quite often Australia is ahead of the curve on trying things out. A lot of global companies look at Australia as a good testing bed.
Yeah.
Like we're big enough, but we're not that big. So people will look at investing there, understanding how the office market works in Australia, with almost all of the commercial office is owned by REITs, which are in turn owned by super. So it's very tied in with the very large super funds, which are ultimately looking for a very steady return. That then enables the landlords to really look for ways that they can continue delivering on that. And keeping people in their buildings has really meant that the level of service there, I find, is very elevated.
As an operator, what's something that you wish your tech did better or did more of?
Talking to each other, like all the different things talking together and all my data being in the one spot.
Speaking of all that data, if you had a magic wand, what's like the one metric that you wish you would be able to instantly get from all your different locations?
The usage of the space so that I can have a better predictor of churn. We've got a lot of NPS and CX data. We've actually been doing this one for a very long time across a lot of data points, but mapping that customer feedback with actual usage, I think is really key, because one thing is what people say, but another thing is what they do. And if you can understand how they're using the space so that you can then get on the front foot, so whenever you rock up to that renewal conversation with hey, you know what, you could actually do this, that would be just great.
I love it. Having been in the industry for a while now and see yourself evolve your business model, what's something that you're most fascinated by?
It's just got so much more sophisticated. I was just saying to somebody before, the first 4 locations that we opened have all closed now as we've moved them to other newer locations. An interesting one is we've kind of hit the ceiling in terms of how much money you can invest in the CapEx and for it to ever make the spreadsheet work. So once we're all capped out on the amount of fit out that we can do in the CapEx, then the service layer becomes the thing that we all have to differentiate on. And how we now invest in people and learning and systems, as opposed to a desk and an office and an IT system, is going to be a really interesting shift for tech, for co-working. I know we all consider ourselves hospitality businesses, and some are more that than others. But in terms of actually investing in that hospitality layer, I don't think that we've made that huge investment yet that's going to come over the coming years.
That leads to the next question. In a very crowded field of aggregators and booking
Yeah.
apps and lists and now AI agents, how do you differentiate? How do you stand out?
There is a hard reality to the business model where it's very tempting to automate as much as we can, but actually how we differentiate is from the high touch side of things. And more, that's where we're going to ultimately be able to differentiate from, particularly an IWG or a WeWork or something like that. They're simply not going to be able to offer an Australian hospitality service because they're not. an Australian hospitality provider. And so us really leaning into that and understanding the local fabric and the local hospitality side of things, that's how we're going to be able to keep differentiating.
That's great. And then I'm very curious because you are representing a completely different region than from what's here. Regulatory issues. Is government helpful? Is it more of a hindrance? What's been your experience down under?
Look, I really appreciate their efforts, but they so often will make an investment that disrupts the marketplace. Like, leave it to the market. Where I've seen government do well is if they focus solely on that startup and incubation part of the ecosystem where they can't pay the rates that keep a co-working space open. So, target that. But when they come in with really large, like a 10,000 person space with not clear criteria as to who can use that, then I have to compete against that. And that becomes counterproductive.
That's great.
Brought to you by Syncaroo. Connect your stack and unblock your best piece.